All right. It says we're
Yeah,
live.
kind of
It
like when
says,
the ball drops and you get the countdown and all of that.
yeah, exactly. That's what was his name? Not Bob Barker. What was
Bob, well, he's same age, but Dick Clark.
Dick Clark? Dick Clark. Did Bob Barker out? Okay, this is totally off topic. Did Bob Barker outlast Dick Clark? You said they were the same age, so did he?
I think they're both mummified, so I really don't know.
Oh, great. Sorry, Bob
Wow.
Barker.
They just kind of prop them up, and you see the mouth move. It's all good.
Wow. All right. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for joining us here at another Corona Geek Hangout. I had to think about where I was. Another Corona Geek Hangout. I'm Charles McKeever, and I'm joined here with Dr. Brian Burton and Toff Ward. So hello, guys.
Hello, hello. Pardon me while I, hydrate, because good hydration is great for programming.
It's very important for all aspects of life. In fact, I think we're on Mars right now looking for water, aren't we? Or
Ooh, I think we are.
some form of life. All right, so what's going on this week, guys? What are we gonna talk about? Toff, take us through the agenda and give us a rundown.
Okay. So, as always, we're going to talk about the latest build notes, because staying up to date is worth staying up to date. It's just can't repeat that enough. Next, I got a newbie question about project structure. Then I got some memory issues, which is actually part of the agenda, not just my memory issues. Then we've got an app review for Corona Project Manager, because kind of goes along with the whole project structure that you need somebody to help manage you. A little bit of talk about the iPad Mini, and then we're going to end it all off with JSON and the Argonauts.
Very cool.
So
JSON and the Argonauts. Very nice, very nice. So let's get into the build notes, because there's quite a few of them. Last time we talked, it was 894 was the build, and there were some interesting notes in it. But they've published quite a few since then. We're at build 904. 904. So let's start with 900, which is kind of where we left off. Basically, in build 900, they added some client-side support for choosing your iOS beta SDK in the build dialog when it's available. Now, we talked about this previously, where basically Corona Labs is going to try to give you the opportunity, a little more sneak preview as to what's going on in relation to upcoming betas. So I think this is part of that whole implementation. So if you're not familiar with the conversation from last week, you should definitely go watch the show. But just briefly, it has to do with the fact that Corona Labs is, as a developer, is subject to Apple's NDA, so they can't disclose a whole bunch of information. So how do you then let your community, developer community, know what's coming, what's going on with your product if you can't discuss Apple's upcoming features? So what they basically said was that they will release that to developers who are also Apple developers, so that we're both covered under the same NDA, and therefore nobody should be releasing information that they shouldn't be releasing. So so I think that's part of that. Is that, Brian, was that I guess that, according to this build note, it's been added. It wasn't there before. Is that
Right. That's basically what it comes down to. These most recent releases that are setting up for the iOS 6 release are only available to subscribers. And if you're a subscriber, you're probably also a developer. And so that takes care of all the issues. 894 was the last public release. So everything since then is a private subscriber-only release.
okay? And I think when you go to do the build, it actually checks to see whether or not you have, if I'm saying this correctly, like a provisioning profile, which
Yes.
you could only have if you were an Apple developer. So therefore, someone's not going to see it if they don't have that. What you showing me, Toff? What's on the screen there?
Oh, this is the Corona roadmap. So if ever, now we're talking about the builds and what they have included and what's not there. But if anybody ever wanted to find out, well, when are they going to be able to do, this on Android, or when are they ever going to be able to do, iMessage on iOS? Well, they've got the roadmap here, and they're kind of walking through, here are all those wonderful things that, you may or may not want or maybe care about, but it's nice to know that, oh, okay, it's on the list.
Yeah, somebody, yeah, at least someone has asked for it, correct? Somebody's,
Yes.
it's on their to-do list. Yeah, I think of the roadmap as a to-do list, not necessarily a timeline of events.
Well, yeah, they've got done. So, I mean, you can see it's like they're slowly crossing things off the list.
Very cool. Okay, so and then also in Build 900, they came along and they made some changes to the way that they handle, what was it, the Xcode's PNG crush. Now, this is something that's totally new to me. Brian, you may be able to talk more about this, but
well, basically, what this is they're trying to speed up for the iPhone developer being able to test build your apps more quickly. The Xcode PNG crush can be very time consuming because it goes through and does compression to all your PNG files. So they've basically removed that for anything that's not a build release build. If you're building to release, then it's still going to do the PNG crush. But if not, it's just going to copy those files over, and so you can test it more quickly.
Okay, yeah, and from the blog post, and I'll put the link to that blog post in the show notes. But apparently, one of the developers said, "I have 1,000 files. I have 1,000 images," and every time he would do the build, the Xcode PNG crush would go through and try to optimize the images, which then get rolled into, I guess, the package. I guess is that the right term or whatever that they have,
yes.
and then that's the app that goes on the phone. But apparently that was every time he was trying to do the build. So they figured out, okay, let's just skip that if you're doing a development build, and then that way you can move on and get things done a lot quicker. And then when you finally do your release build or your final build or whatever you want to call it, they distribution build, there's the word. Then they go ahead and go through the whole process and crunch all your images, which 1,000 images in
that would slow down the build considerably.
Yeah, I would think so. It would definitely do that. So that was pretty cool. I thought that was creative on their part, trying to make sure that developers aren't, that they're spending their time wisely and they're as productive as possible. That's kind of one of the reasons why I like Corona, is because you make a change and boom, you get to see it on the screen almost immediately. And so this is just another one of those ways that you can save time and get things done more efficiently. Okay, Build 903, they added a native new map view support, supported on all Android devices, including Kindle Fire and Nook.
This wasn't available on Android before this.
Okay.
So basically this is they're crossing off an item on the roadmap.
Okay, excellent.
Makes sense.
Okay, good. And that's for subscribers only, or what's the?
Subscribers only.
Okay, so if you want to get that, then you're going to need to go ahead and
subscribe.
Go to coronalabs.com, click on the.
And we don't get anything out of that. We're independents. We're not employed by Corona Labs, but we like the product.
Yep, exactly.
Our little disclaimer there.
Yeah, definitely. We should put that in at the beginning of every little show there. Let's see, Build 903, in Android, they fixed some bugs for the native display objects. And I thought this was interesting, and they said that they have a top left reference point by default instead of the center like in iOS. So my question is, why do some things have a top left reference and some things have a center reference? Brian, do you have a...
Well, yeah, all things have top left or center. Okay. When you're initially declaring an object, such as let's use the example of a display text. I'm going to put what we would normally refer to as a label up on the screen. Okay. If I'm giving the location in the initial declaration, that's based upon the top left corner of that object. Anytime I'm changing it via the X or the Y property, that's based upon the center of the object. Okay. And so what they've done is they've made that universal.
Okay. So let's move on to Build 904 then. Did we finish that part of the discussion?
We're ready for that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Uh, let's see. They changed the behavior of the native.text feed. No, I'm sorry. Native.new text field event listener phases to be closer to match the iOS phases. So this is something that I thought was interesting, and this is basically based on my own background as a web developer, not necessarily an app developer, and that's touch events on text fields. So I know with jQuery and things like that on the web, you can do events and things like that, but the idea of having everything on the screen is a touch event, really, right? I mean, unless it's two objects colliding with each other or something like that. But anytime you touch the screen, which seems like an obvious thing, there's a touch event associated with it. So that's just not something that I'm used to. So is there something in particular that you'd want to do with a touch event on a text field? I mean, are you just doing validation? Are you like...
Validation would be the first thing that came to mind as to why you would want to necessarily have a touch event associated with it. But basically, you're looking at what do you want to happen with that touch event. You could touch and have it submit, just like hitting a return on the keyboard, or you can have it do validation.
Oh, interesting. So you could save your form data, for lack of a better term, there. You could save your form data every time for every field that you touch.
Yes,
right?
But you got to be careful with that because you could conceivably create an infinite loop.
Oh. So that's where all the phases come in, right? So you've got a touch phase and an ended phase, and then okay.
Submit phase, and yeah.
So you don't want to.
You don't want your return calling a submit, because that will create an infinite loop.
Okay. And I think they mentioned that in the build notes, and that's what they're talking about. Okay.
Yes.
That would be pretty important.
Infinite loops are bad.
That would be important.
Nuclear war, infinite loops, both bad.
Got it. We're good.
That's funny. All right.
Speaking of bad, we'll just move right on into the newbie question.
All right, good. Which,
obviously I'm typically bad for my naming structures, but is there a standard? I do hate, it's like drawing blood, pulling teeth to ask this, but are there standards that I should be following as I start doing my, building my Corona apps?
There are no standards police that are going to come and check your apps. Or did you properly organize your information? Though you may regret not having organized your project files. If you're working on a large project with thousands of graphic files, having them all in your root folder for the project is going to be a nightmare trying to manage everything. If you're working on a complex game, you may want to organize things by level or by particular attribute or sound files or something like that. So yeah, it's a good idea to follow basic traditional methodology in that we put our graphic files in an images or graphics folder, put the audio in an audio folder, but there's no set naming convention to that. Develop your own and stick with it. That's your best bet.
Well, I had found this guy who happens to be the coronalabs.com, and they were actually talking about it's not mandatory, but here are some good
recommended.
Recommended so that when somebody else looks at your program, they don't go, "Holy crap! What did you do?" I think I had fun with that at one point because I wrote a program that had multiple classes, and you had the Bob and the Mary, and when Mary and Bob got together, they had a child class, and really the other programmers were ready to hang me by the time I finished the thing.
Well, if you don't know the background and history of Bob and Mary, then
all you had to do is watch General Hospital and you're done.
But what happens when Mary kills off Bob and doesn't set it to nil?
Bob's got a clone that gets resurrected with
That's right.
All good. The secret half-brother twin.
When you're doing your back to our discussion here, when you're doing your standard project file organization, you cannot put your icon files in any of those. They need to be in the root folder. Your main needs to be in the root. Your icon images need to be in the root. There are certain items that need to be in root no matter what. Everything else then can be located in a subfolder.
Oh well, that's an excellent tip. Is that in the Toff? Is that on that document anywhere?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. I mean, because I was curious about that when they had the icon.png, and I thought, well, I've already got an images folder. Why wouldn't I put my image in my images folder? It just made sense.
Yeah.
Nope, they got to go in your root.
Yeah, but that makes sense though, right? Because that's a convention that Corona has implemented to try to handle different graphics for different resolutions and things like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's okay. That makes sense. Okay. Well, then moving along here, then I want to ask this one. I want to, Brian, you're getting a lot of action today here. I want to.
It's the Brian Burton Show.
Which I have actually something about Brian that I want to bring up later. We'll do that in just a minute. Here, first of all, I want to ask why is it that you have to create a rectangle and give it a color to have a background to your project or to your scene?
Well, you don't if you are okay with black.
Any color you want, as long as it's black.
It's black.
Right.
The Ford model, right? Awesome.
Yes. We have that available in black, or for a limited time, black.
That was one of the things that kind of threw me in the beginning, was looking at this thing going, I've got to make a rectangle and I have to set a fill color to it. I mean, it just seemed like I could just go in and say background black. But I understand it now, I guess, because everything is an object.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a rectangle with a fill color. It could be a PNG file that you want to use, clouds floating slowly by in the distance, or whatever you need to have for your background. It doesn't have to be a rectangle and then do a fill.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll have to look at that. That would be pretty cool to play with as well. Is that how they do the floaty clouds in the background?
Yes.
That kind of stuff?
Well, kind of.
Sure.
That's done with sprite sheets.
Oh, okay. Oh.
That's parallax. So we'll talk about that in another episode.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Good to know. So there's options there. But okay, so you just can't set the background of the app to a color. Okay. Okay, let's go into some of the Corona blog highlights then. And this was one that you nailed as being fairly important. So let's talk about it. And that is properly removing objects and variables from your project when you're done using them. So there was a Corona blog post on this. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But the general overall idea behind it was that when you're finished using these objects, even if you remove them, there's still a reference to them, so you need to nil that out. So Brian, how does that work specifically?
Basically, what we're concerned about is memory leaks. The more memory you're using up, the slower your app is going to run. So when you're no longer using an object, whether that's displaying text to your screen or a complex sprite sheet or something else, you need to remove it from memory. And it's a two-step process. You can do the object name, or whatever you've named it, remove self, and that will remove it. But that doesn't get rid of it necessarily from memory, because you could still have that object floating out. Let's say I created a local variable and displayed on the screen, "Hi Mom," which makes my mother very happy anytime I do something like that. "Hi Mom," yes, it's all good. So we place that on the screen, and then I no longer need that object, so I do a remove of that display object, but it would still be on the display until I have completely removed it from memory.
Okay. And
to do that, I have to set that object to nil. So the "Hi Mom" display text, I do a remove self. All that's done is broken the connection between the variable and the display object.
Okay,
and
now.
when I do the object nil, then I've erased it.
Okay, so you've totally just blown it away. It no longer exists. Any references, no nothing.
Right. When you set it to nil, it's gone because you've reset the whole variable.
So now, but there is a stage there. Where, okay, you said there's two-step operation. So you've got the object remove self, and then you've got the nil. Is there a time when you'd want to just remove the object, leave I think it's a table reference that they said, and then not do the nil so that you could come back later and use it or something? There's a reason why you wouldn't do both steps?
Nothing comes to mind immediately, but I am sure that there's some reason out there why you might want to delay doing the nil.
There has to be. They left it like that. There has to be. Otherwise, they would just code it into just when you would remove self, it just nils it out, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a reason there that I'm just not thinking of right at this moment.
Oh, maybe it's. I'm sorry. I'm thinking out loud too. Maybe it's because in that article he also talks about local variables that still reference the object.
Right.
So I guess
local variables, once you leave that function that you're in, the local variable's done. It's automatically been removed, but it's not been nilled.
So I guess.
So if you want it to be in existence, if it's a local variable, declare it outside of that function. Otherwise, you're losing that connection, and you can't erase it smoothly and easily.
So maybe they don't automatically nil it out, because if they did that, maybe they would create problems somewhere else, and then
and things would be disappearing from the screen that you might want to continue to exist on the screen.
So this would give you being able to, as the developer, being able to choose when you nil it. That gives you the opportunity to control exactly what's going on inside the app. I'm gonna vote that one up as the answer. I have no idea if it's right or not, but it sounds good.
Until somebody says different, we're going with that as the answer.
Yeah, let's go with that. Maybe we can get Walter on the show to tell us all about it. Okay, so let's move on then. That's a pretty good. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. You can go read all about that and get all the details out of there. Like I said, there's a lot more details in the actual article itself. So let's talk about Corona Project Manager. So before, in the previous shows, we've done a couple of app reviews. We've talked about some games and things like that. But this time we're going to talk about more of a productivity tool for actually building your projects and things like that. So Brian, if you would give us a little overview of what Corona Project Manager is and how you use it, or what, give us the skinny.
Okay. Well, Corona Project Manager is a management tool created by JY. He's created a really great tool. I've been using it for about a year now, and it is for, as it says, management of multiple projects. I've got it on the screen here. You can see I've got this is my project lists over here on the left, and I've got a project for every single chapter in my book listed here. Well, sometimes I want to share information between various projects. I might need to reuse buttons or something like that. Just a second. Excuse me.
Don't die on us.
Yeah.
You gotta
Finish the review.
He's dying. So I've got my project manager here, and as you can see here, I've got Chapter 10, the Star Explorer game, ready to go. So I've got main open. It's got an editor window. I can go in, and as we were just talking about, I have organized the information into images and sounds. So doing good project management here. And then my basic settings here, build settings, configure Lua, main Lua, and I've got a splash screen Lua file that I call. I could have put that in its own folder, but there's just one file, so it just didn't make sense. And then, of course, I've got my icon as well. I can share any of the graphic images between the various graphics and pull them into other folders without creating duplicate images, which, when you're working on a large project, that can really save you a lot of hassle, because if I want to update a graphic or a sound file, it carries through all the projects.
Oh, cool.
Update once, copies to everything, And then when I go to build, it actually creates a copy of that image into the right folder.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, so I get a little bit more control.
That seems like that would be great across. I'm sorry, but that seems like that would be great across. Like as you say, I make a change to that one image file, and now it's replicated out across everything. So instead of me having to go update 10 projects, I have one reference point.
Yes.
Very cool.
That's exactly it.
Very cool.
And then on the right-hand side here, I've got a list of all the functions in my current document. So if I need to jump to the spawn ship, I can just simply click on that, and it's at spawn ship, which makes being able to update those functions very easy. The newest version of CPM includes tags. You can put your own bookmarks and tags in so that if you've got a reference point you're always jumping to or working on, you can control that very easily. It has autocomplete built into it. So as you're starting to type a display.new image rectangle, it shows you what the basic structure of it is, and just makes and helps speed up the whole process of creating a Corona project.
On the autocomplete, how often do they update that?
Actually, you can update it.
Oh, cool.
So if there's been a major change in the iOS or the API, you can pull in and make those changes yourself in the system.
Oh, very nice.
But Jay's done a really good job of keeping that up to date. So I very seldom have had to make any changes to it.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, that's always it's just we're talking about this ain't your grandfather's API stuff here. I mean, the Corona Labs is making changes every day and publishing this stuff, right? So the tools have to be just as responsive and keep up with what's going on as do the developers. So that's very cool.
Yes, and then one last thing, you can launch it from the CPM. I can hit the launch button. I'm not going to do that right this minute, but it'll launch, build it, and you can start testing. So it'll call up the Corona SDK simulator straight from here.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Does that bring up the terminal as well?
Yes. Well, it does in Windows.
We talked about that last week.
And I went ahead and set that in mind so that it does open up the terminal, because you do have control over where it locates the Corona project or Corona SDK and the simulator. I told it to open the terminal on my Mac.
Oh, I got you. So you can, instead of
so I always get it.
I got you.
And one last note, in Chapter 17 of my book, not to do any blatant self-promotion here.
Oh, pimp it up. Come on.
In Chapter 17, it is listed as, or there's a coupon code.
Okay, for CPM?
Yes, for CPM.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. It's like $50, $49.99, which, I remember when Visual Studio was $1,200. So I have to giggle at the price of tools for APIs. It's just kind of staggers me.
Yeah. Well, you can do all this stuff with Notepad or TextMate or whatever your text editor of choice is. But if you just want to get a little more bang for your time, then yeah, that's a no-brainer. $50. That's
and if you're an indie, that $50 you will quickly save on being able to produce your projects much more quickly.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for taking us through that. I have that on my system, but I haven't kept up with the latest version, so I need to go out and get the latest version. All right. So let's look at device news. Let's move on to that. So this is 2 days before the iPhone 5 event. So we won't really go through any kind of rumors or anything like that, but just to kind of let everybody know in case you live under a rock. It will be happening on Wednesday, and I'm sure that the Corona Labs team is keeping a close eye on that. Just because who knows what Apple's not going to let show everybody all their cards, right? So you never know what's going to happen there. We don't know for sure whether or not they'll offer the iPad Mini at the event or if it'll be at a separate event. There's a lot of rumors going around. The iPad Mini may come out at another event. My iPad Mini may never come out. There's been some rumors and there's been some mock-ups and things floating around the internet, but who knows if there's even gonna be an iPad Mini? Right? Have you guys heard of anything that's been confirmed?
Not solid.
I mean, some compelling stuff, but compelling isn't.
Something that, oh yeah, my brother's half brother's sister's cousin kind of, knows a guy.
Yeah. So my question to you, to both of you, and this is just an informal poll between the three of us here. So we've got what 33% either way. Would you buy an iPad Mini if they came out with one?
Honestly, pretty much between my phone and I would need to get like a laptop. And I say this because I haven't quite got all the functionality of my current iPad. Yeah, I'd love to get more out of it, but it doesn't do everything I need that, say, a laptop would, or even the Mac Airbook. I mean, just not quite there yet, and it's not the fault of the tablet. The apps haven't quite kept up with what you can get for a full laptop. So the idea of getting something that's in between, halfway, as an entertainment device, I may lean more towards like the Galaxy Note 2 or something like that. As far as ease of use, I know my kids love their iPod Touch, so that would be more or less an upgrade for them. So we go hop in the car and travel for 3 days. I can go, ooh, here, look, I just downloaded 64 gig worth of games and movies, so you won't be screaming, are we there yet? So I can see it being highly valuable, and the fact that it's so intuitive because it's Apple, it makes it nice too. But as far as hitting a nerve that says I must have this, not yet.
Okay, Brian, what about you?
I'm probably going to end up with one. How quickly I purchase one is the big question. Okay. So I can see my daughter would just simply love that, especially taking something like that to class. Same size as the Kindle, it's that would be very appealing. But we've also got the Windows Microsoft Surface coming out. That's not far in the future. So as a developer, I have to have these devices.
Well, I would definitely like to have one. I've said for a very long time that I would like to see the iPad be smaller because I would like my thumbs to be able to come together in the middle of the screen. I want to be able to type without having to be more like this and having to reach over and I think that an iPad Mini would be perfect. And I do tend to get a lot of value out of the iPad. And unlike Toff, I feel like I could probably do 85, 90% of what I do, I could probably do on an iPad. Now, I would need and this is where I think the Surface is probably, they're probably talking to a much broader audience, is I would need some sort of keyboard, third-party keyboard, slide my iPad into it. And I would love, and I know maybe Apple's not doing this because it would compete with their computers, but I would love to be able to attach a mouse to the computer. Because if I could attach a mouse to the computer, to the tablet, then now I can replicate the form factor of being able to type with things, use my mouse, click on things on the screen, flip between different applications and things like that, and just be a little more productive. But if they come out with one, I would definitely want one. And this time I would get the one that has the data package, the radio in it. Hopefully the one, if they come out with an iPad Mini, hopefully it will have a radio, even have that option, because if it's connected to the internet all the time, then now it becomes exponentially more valuable to me than if it's just on Wi-Fi only. So I don't know.
Hey, take a look. You just described the Surface.
Yeah, I know. I brought it up on the screen because I saw you had it on the thing, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And the keyboard, I would kill for this on my iPad. This is like exactly what I'm looking for to be more productive.
Right, and that's why I say I think I would, in order to truly, because you mentioned it being more like a laptop and things like that, in order to really get that form factor out of it and be able to get all the love out of the device, I want it to be something to where, I slide it into a cradle for a keyboard. I can use that. for speed and productivity. And then when I'm ready to take it and go sit on the couch or whatever, I can just slide it out and I'm done. But now the virtual keyboard, or whatever they call that, that's I can reach that with my thumbs, because if I can type with my thumbs, I can blow through creating some notes, doing blog posts, doing some programming, whatever. The full-size iPad today just is not as comfortable for that. It's great for viewing things. It's great for browsing and surfing and responding to emails and things like that. But it's just not. It's not comfortable. It's capable, but not comfortable. And I think the iPad Mini would be more comfortable, which would encourage more usage. So, just my thoughts.
And I do want to note, none of us have received our Apple or Microsoft announcements for the next, our invites to go to these announcement shows. So somebody has fallen down on the job.
I know it. See, we'll tell you at the end of the show how you can send that to us so we can be there. I know, and a free, a complimentary Surface review.
Definitely.
Unit would be awesome too. So, but yeah, you're right. I think
promised to put it through its paces.
I think when the Surface or Surface or whatever the correct moniker is, whenever that comes out, it's definitely going to be something for developers to look at, just because there's how many 600? Am I saying this? 600,000, 300,000 apps. I mean, it's like some kind of incredible number of apps in the Apple App Store. Okay, well, not so much in the Windows App Store, we'll call it. So right. A lot less noise and place to kind of get in, and broader market. That might be a good opportunity for people. So
we'll put it on next week for discussing the whole Microsoft's plan for supporting developers and how they're going to financially reimburse the developers. I did some research on that last week, so we'll make sure we include that. Of course, Corona, there is no announcement that Corona is going to support Windows 8 at this point in time, but we'll get Walter on here. Maybe he can tell us if that's in the future plans or something.
Oh, that would be.
We'll put him on the spot.
Yeah, that would be good.
It's always good to poke a CEO.
That's right.
That's right. So don't tell Walter about this show. That way, he'll be surprised. All right. So that's that, and then the other thing here for device news is near field communication. From what I've read, there's been some speculation as to whether or not the iPhone 5 will include near field or NFC. And for anybody who doesn't know, who's not familiar with that term, because it's fairly new to me, is that basically the idea of if you can hold up the device to, like, say, a credit card swipe, you could communicate short range, which I don't know. I guess that's for like security purposes, that it's short range, kind of almost a physical contact kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got to be within like a few centimeters for it to actually register it. And if we're all in Texas, so we've got a place here called Whataburger, and Whataburger has near field communication at their drive-through. If you've got an Android-based device, you could use it like swiping a credit card.
It's almost like
if you've got an iPhone.
So almost like the gas station where you can hold up your little quick pass and then just pay for your stuff right there. Okay. So that is there any other application that you could have for that besides just credit card kind of stuff? I mean, how much information?
Well, you can share information. Yeah, you could use it kind of like Bluetooth, being able to pass information from phone to phone.
Okay, but it's short range. It's like you say, whatever. It's
very short range,
so that you're not just.
You got to get them right
the
next to each other.
Okay, intentional. Yeah.
Right.
So when you pickpocket people for data, you still have to bump into them.
Yes, you got to get close.
Data
not
pickpockets.
Not any more difficult than it used to be.
Go Google. Go to GoDaddy and check that out, Toff. Data pickpockets. I bet that domain's available. All right. In our spotlight, our API spotlight today, we want to talk about JSON. That's going to be our last topic for the day, and then we're going to wrap things up. But JSON, Brian, can you talk a little bit about what JSON is and how we might use it in an app?
Okay. JSON is an updated version of XML, which basically allows the easy passing of information between a server and a client. So I've created an iPhone app. I want to update the information from a server. JSON is a simplified version of XML, so I can receive that information from a database or from that website, being able to organize the information really smoothly. Toff and I have been talking back and forth about his creating an app that has maps, and he wants to be able to update that information to the client side. Well, with the JSON file, you could check for dates. Last time it was updated, should this be sent through? Should I replace the current file with the old file? And I can include a lot of information with that graphics image.
Yeah, I was actually playing with, where was it? Display.load remote image, and it's kind of cool that you can just grab the image from the site. Because the whole idea I was thinking with the maps is I don't want to have to republish every time I change a map or every time I change some information about that map. I would much rather have some way of having the data remotely and just basically you can update it when and if you wish. So that it would basically go find, is there a newer version? Yes or no. If there is, come grab it, load it, locally, so that you don't have to have a Wi-Fi. It's just kind of a bonus thing. So, like I said, I did the load remote image and it worked and it was kind of cool, but I really needed something with a little more oomph and power, and that's where the JSON comes in, where I can use that to pass the information back and forth.
Now, Corona has this built into the API, right? I mean, it's built. I mean, there it is on the screen. But
right.
I mean, it's not just that.
You still have to do a require. But
okay, but you can take that information and then stuff it into like a table, right?
Yes.
Isn't that kind of like some of the benefit of using JSON is that you can get this information remotely and then it has.
Yeah. Right, you can pull it in from the remote server, decode it, and it's already in a table format.
Okay, so as opposed to having to pull an XML feed and then parse through that and then do all this management, I mean JSON kind of simplifies, or the as I understand it, the JSON implementation inside of Corona simplifies that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to have to go through and do a bunch of parsing. You don't have to load a parser. You just simply do a JSON decode, pass it the variable that you've stored the information in, and you're good to go. You've got a table that you're ready to use in your app.
And click on that tutorial there, Exploring JSON Usage in Corona. I think that's the tutorial that I'm thinking about, and that's actually on the Corona Labs blog under their tutorial section. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. I was going through this the other day looking at their tutorials, and there was a couple of others out there that were pretty interesting. There was one I actually found, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, that talks exactly about what you're talking about, having the remote app on the web server and then having, or I say app, load the remote script on the web server and then the app making the calls back and forth and doing, updating things or pulling information, almost like if you're pulling player information. As soon as somebody starts up the app, it goes out, pulls their player information, and then pulls that into the app and uses it. So yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Cool. All right, so that's a pretty neat little feature of the API. I think. I mean, that's again one of the examples of Corona making it much easier for developers to do things that do the heavy lifting for you, so that you don't have to necessarily build everything from scratch, which is kind of where you are, I think, with a lot of the native APIs. You're kind of building things from scratch in a lot of instances. At least that's my understanding. I could be completely wrong. So quick question, and kind of on that same vein, is do you know of any good tutorials on pulling information from WordPress? Anybody?
From WordPress?
Yeah, because WordPress, it provides a feed.
Yes.
for just about everything, for the main site, for all the categories, all that kind of stuff like that. Is there any good references?
Actually, I'm working on a project that does exactly that. Let's revisit that in a future episode.
Okay,
but,
cool. All right, yeah. I'll talk to you.
I've got a current project that does that.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you about that because that just seems like a no-brainer. That definitely seems like something that needs to be there. All right, well then that's it. That's all we have for today. That's all that's on the agenda, at least for today. I'm sure we could continue to talk about this for a while now.
Forever.
But what's that? Forever? Yeah.
Forever.
The rabbit hole goes deep, but we're gonna call it for the day and
stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. Yeah. So thanks everybody for watching and being with us today. And if you have questions that you want to ask, you can do that. Usually you can leave your questions below this video because wherever this is being posted, we will go and monitor that and answer your questions. But you can also, if you'd like, you can find us on Google Plus under as Corona Geek. You can find us facebook.com/Corona Geek. We're on Twitter as Corona Geek. And if you have questions, you want to send those directly to us. You don't want to necessarily, or you can't find us in any of those places, you can send it to questions@coronageek.com. It's really that simple. We're pretty much all over the place, every place that we could think to be that we think you are. So thanks for watching.
We did that in just 4 episodes.
What's that?
We're everywhere in just 4 episodes.
We are. Oh, you remind me. There's one thing that I want to bring up before we leave out of here, and I think it's very important, and it's enough to kind of bring back around, and that's that I did a little bit of searching on you, Brian. A little bit. I Googled you. Sorry.
That's not me.
And I found that you are, in fact, the author of Beginning Mobile App Development with Corona, which we have referenced a few times, and people can find more information about that book and the other book that you wrote. I won't go into the details of which one's which, but there's 2 books out there, and you can get that at Burton's plural, burtonsmedia.com. And you can find more information about Brian's book out there.
BurtonsMediaGroup.com.
Did I say that? Did I not say BurtonsMediaGroup.com?
I think you left group out.
Oh, it's BurtonsMediaGroup.com. Let's say it one more time, just in case.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to drop packets. Hold on. Let me see here. Now I'm going to bring this up on the screen here. This is the other thing that I want to discuss with you, Brian. I see that you live an alternate life as well, and I have to say, man, I like the fro. Okay, the fro it's you. It's definitely you. So you got So you got Brian Burton, the professor, book author, Corona
and Danger Mouse.
And then,
no, I am not Danger Mouse.
And then you have Brian Burton, the Danger Mouse. Yeah. So I have decided that we are officially going to dub you Danger, just for short. That's going to be That's going to be your new stage name. Oh, that's too funny. I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, if you are interested in Brian's book, do check out his website at burtonsmediagroup.com. And I'll put a link to that in show notes just because I can't talk. And you can check out his book. It's a great reference. And we've talked about it. We've referenced it. We've referenced his reference here in the show. But it's certainly something you want to get your hands on and dig into. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. And remember, next week you can be back here on Monday, 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time, whatever that is, your time. And we'll be back here discussing everything that has to do with Corona SDK and mobile app development. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.
Take it easy.